You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Yes, it is I, the one and only Nikolai, and I'm doing well, so can't wait to get this special interview going.
I'm going to give my guest here a introduction, although she doesn't really need one. She is one of the best wrestlers in New England wrestling, and she is the current IWE Women's Champion. Please welcome on Mistress Belmont. How you doing?
I am doing just wonderful tonight. Thank you for having me. I wanted to make it a point to join you folks and do this interview.
I guess I'll go with the first question. And my first question is tonight, who are some of your trainers that were responsible for breaking you into the wrestling industry?
Yeah, the person that I originally trained with was named Steve Bradley, and Steve had a huge influence on me. He was one of those guys that was in the WWE, but most people didn't know who he was. So a lot of people, to say the name Steve Bradley, you wouldn't know who I was talking about. But I was actually... I think he was
one of the developmental guys back in, 2001.
Yes, and unfortunately, in 2008, he died of a heroin overdose, which is an unfortunate... it was one of those things that was a kind of, the darker side of wrestling ended up catching up with him, and he had an addiction to painkillers and things like that, and it ended up destroying his life essentially, and I had to watch his life deteriorate. And unfortunately, I don't want people to think of when I talk about Steve Bradley to think of that, but he was the one that gave me the basis for my character. We sat down and we talked about Mistress Belmont, and he was the one that helped me decide to dye my hair blue and wear red contact lenses and throw things, and so I really I owe a lot to Steve Bradley, and my goal after he passed away was to always be his legacy. He's trained several other up and coming talents, and but I always I was hoping that as a women's wrestler that I could be his legacy.
Very good. Nikolai, you want to go with the next question?
Sure. I'm sure you get this question a lot, Mistress, but we usually ask anybody we interview here, how did you get into wrestling in the first place? What motivated you to become a wrestler?
Well, in all honesty, I've always wanted to have something to do with wrestling, and without completely giving away my age, when I was in 7th grade, I was a huge wrestling fan, and I was actually before I came on, I was actually looking at your website, and I was looking at the Mike Poulin's biography, and I have a feeling he and I might have seen some of the same shows at the Cumberland County Civic Center, and I remember growing up watching Jake the Snake and the Ultimate Warrior and wrestlers like that, and I've always wanted to have something to do with wrestling. And the reason why I phrased it like that is because when I was in 7th grade, I never saw women's wrestling. I saw women ballet. There was Miss Elizabeth and Sensational Sherry, and there wasn't any women's wrestlers, unless you went to a maybe like a WrestleMania or something like that. But the Saturday morning wrestling, you never got to see women's wrestling. And essentially what ended up happening was I have a younger brother that wrestles as well. And
is that John, by the way?
Yes.
Is that John?
The Butcher, John Poe, yes.
Yes.
He's actually my little brother. And I just discovered that apparently we're now a tag team for in PWS Northeast down in Rhode Island, which kind of makes
funny how that works.
I know. And I really, whenever I tell the story, I always have to bring up my brother because I didn't know anything about training, or I looked up schools and I couldn't find anything. And my little brother John ended up going to a local wrestling show in Dover, New Hampshire. And he's for anybody that's ever seen him, he's kind of a big guy, and he sticks out a little bit. And
yes.
When he was sitting in the audience at a show, and a bunch of people came up to him, and they thought that he was I guess as people would say, they thought it was a plan because he was a big guy sitting in the crowd, and so people kept coming up to him and saying, "Are you a wrestler? Are you a wrestler?" And he's like, "No, I'm just here to watch the show." He was driving home from work, saw a poster on a telephone pole, and we all loved wrestling, and so he decided to go check it out. And there's actually somebody there that said, "Hey, you know, the promotion that's running tonight, they have a school," which ended up being Steve Bradley's school, and it was his promotion that was running in Dover, New Hampshire. And so he went to the school and checked it out, and he went to a couple of practices, and he called me up and said, you have to come check this out. And so he joined in November, and then I went and took out a loan and started in March after he did, and I guess that's pretty much how I managed to get into wrestling.
And I guess I'll go with the next one and ask you, who was your first match against?
My first match was actually a tag match that was myself and Tanya Lee, who I don't believe is wrestling anymore, against the wonderful and talented Nikki Rocks. And I'm honest, I think Sammy Lane was her tag partner. I think
I've seen that match kicking around YouTube somewhere.
Oh God, it's probably a horrible embarrassment, and I remember being terrified out of my mind. But it's one of those things that when you do it once, you become addicted to that feeling of, and you learn it. You learn as you go, and you get better. And if I look back at those matches, I cringe, but it's all part of learning, I suppose.
Yes. And Nick, you've got the next one.
Actually, I'm going to bring up a question from the chat room, and this interview is being streamed live on angrymarks.com, so if you check this out live or on the download, make sure you always check it out over there. One of the listeners who also does some podcasts here on the site, Sierra, she actually covers women's wrestling. In some daily news updates, she'll even write some articles on any wrestlers she comes across. And she has a question for you, Mr. Belmont. She asked,
awesome.
if ever given the opportunity, would you consider moving to Japan and try to make a career there like Haley Hatred or even Kelly Skater?
Wow. Honestly, that's a tough one. It's I have I'm married, and I have a husband, and my family and whatnot are here in the United States. And as much as I would love to go to Japan, I think probably living there would probably not be an option. But I would love to go there because I know that the experience would be absolutely tremendous.
Interesting.
Speaking of Japan, you had a match not all that long ago. I'm not sure how long ago it was with Amazing Kong. What was it like working with Amazing Kong?
Amazing, as cliche as it sounds, it was truly amazing. It's one of probably mentally, it was one of the most interesting matches because, I'm wrestling a woman that's, 6 feet tall and somewhere in the ballpark of 200 pounds. And, that's a very daunting task. And so you have to really think outside the box. I remember, because I've actually wrestled her twice, and the first time I remember saying to myself, okay, I have to completely rethink my strategy because while, I'm a strong, I consider myself fairly strong, and against girls my size, I can hold my own. Against somebody that's twice my size, it's a different story. But it was truly, I felt very honored to have the ability to say that I wrestled Awesome Kong.